All right, so I have my puzzle pieces. I did loose selections of them, and now I am loosely placing them into their space. And I'm being informed by my sketch about where I want things to go. But of course, my sketch might not reflect the exact reality of all the references. And so now I get to play with them a little bit. And because most of my elements are organic, I can mess with transforming them in ways that I feel pretty safe doing, pretty confident doing. And I might decide I need other reference as well, like atop of these rocks. Or I might need to stretch this reference down the length of it a little bit. Find ways to make it work. So let's start from the background. How do we start blending these puzzle pieces together? Okay, so right from here, actually I want to do these two together. This is the main tool we're going to use today, starting to blend edges. Notice I have a lot of overlap. I'm going to use the eraser tool, which is the first time we've used it. And I'm going to use a brush that is pressure sensitive for size. So one of these two brushes are the most basic. So I want the hardness to be 0, and I want the brush size to be pretty big. You know, bigger than a pencil eraser as I'm working. I want the opacity to be 100%. I want the flow to be 100%. I want the mode to be a brush mode. And that way I can just erase away completely, but it's a nice soft edge. Right? But when I really want to erase and blend, so notice even though these trees don't match, by softening them, I could see how I could actually keep some of that if I wanted to. I'm careful not to erase into the architecture, and I can zoom in with Command plus if I need to. So the soft edge is a good tool here, but be careful not to erase too close to anything that you want to remain a sharp edge, like the edges of architecture. Okay, there's another way we can also delete, which would be appropriate in this case, because maybe I want that tree to transition. You know, I can use the soft edges here to transition, but I don't want all of this bright white that's coming from behind it. You see how that can transition pretty well. I'm not worried about color yet. I'm not that worried about lighting yet. Just worried about placement and edge. The other tool we can use, which we've used before, is the magic wand. Tolerance of 32. I can turn contiguous on if I want, and click within these white areas and then just hit delete. And it will do a lot to delete that white. Or I can turn contiguous off if I think the only whites in this layer are in the sky, not in the temple. And now those are selected. Instead of just hitting delete, because that will do everything, now I'll just use my eraser, my soft edged eraser, and erase where I know it's safe to erase, in the trees. Not getting too close to that temple. The only problem with using the magic wand tool is it's a fairly hard-edged tool without any modification. I hit Command D to deselect, and so I'll get all these little fragments, right, hard-edged fragments that don't quite work. And so then I might take my opacity down on my eraser and just start blending those in very loosely. So it's all about eraser tools now. And transitioning the areas that make sense. The easiest thing to transition and the first thing you can is the background sky. For instance, my sky is really boring. So I'm actually going to find new reference because I'm going to have a little bit of sky in my composition. Not too much once I get the waterfall in there. Let's see, where is that? But I need something up here. So I'm going to actually save this, which I shamefully have not saved yet. Save with my name. And for my full assignments, I'll use my first and last name. And then assignment 1, fantasy landscape. Macs don't limit your number of characters for names, so I tend to be pretty descriptive. To the desktop as a Photoshop file. And while that's saving, I will go back to a Google image search. And I am going to look for sky over rock cave. It's very specific, but why not hope for the best? And of course, I'm going to limit the search to larger than 10 megapixels, which is larger than even just a wallpaper. But I might get lucky. So here's a nice one. Right, I have kind of rocky outcropping with a sky that's not just pure white. Oh, that's really nice too. So much. What did we do before the internet? I like that. Let's see, is there anything else? I might use as just an overall. I like just this gradation of the sky here. So I might use that. Oh, that's a pretty sky. But I want it to feel appropriate to the jungle as well. So that's just a big open sky, nice high resolution. Save that to the desktop for now. Remember, Command D in a search window will always navigate it to the desktop for you. This beautiful gradation, I want to use that. And then this very dramatic sky might be nice. That's 3 references just for sky. All right, so what do? I bring them in as smart layers. This is a general gradation I want. So I want it to cover the whole expanse of the sky I'm going to be using. But because I don't need anything else, I can just take that expanse and stretch it over the area that I might use. My landscape's actually getting a little bit wider than I sketched it, but I think that will be nice. And now I'm going to just isolate it basically. Like so. Duplicate that. Turn off the smart layer underneath. I've got one sky asset. Move that behind everything. Okay, next. Use F11 to swoop everything away. Bring this in for the top of my rocks. Move it down. Like it like so. Maybe stretch it as well. Just a little bit, like so. And then what do I want from this? I'm just going to take off the rough edges, or the sharp edges. And lastly, the dramatic sky. Huge reference. Don't need it that big. Remember, I search for 10 megapixels and bigger, not only 10 megapixels. Shrink it a little bit. Pull out what I need. I can add to my selection with the Shift key. Duplicate it, turn off the spawner object underneath. All right, so I'm just going to play with my skies, and I'm going to make a sky that's all my own with some rocks. And I'm going to do that with the soft eraser. Because I do want these rocks in the foreground, I'm going to move that to the front. All right, so how does that work? I use my eraser tool. First, let's do these two layers together. How do I blend this with this? Well, I'm using the overlap zone, and I'm going to make my eraser really big at 100% opacity, really soft, and then I'm going to use what's called the echo effect, the ghosting of the eraser. And notice how I'm not even erasing on the image, but I get this kind of echo of the eraser because it's so soft that will start blending it. And the bigger I make the brush, the more pronounced that echo will be. Make it too big, it will lag behind though. Oh, yep. It's not that big. And this is why, you know, it's good to save your work as you go. If things start to grind to a halt, that's a little dangerous. And that's also why we have our history. So if you make them if you do something you don't like, you can go back in your history. We try to save at least 200 steps so you can keep working with it. What's more is I can use this whole layer. I can take its opacity down, and I can move that over the top of that blue, like so, to get kind of a dramatic sky. And that's more what I'm looking for. Okay, now, with these, how can I bring this into it? Take it on top. I'm going to use that soft eraser, 100% opacity. Start blending it out. Just the hard edges. I don't want that bird, so I'm going to take that out all the way. And now I'm going to use a lower opacity because I've taken off the hard edges to transition between. Like so. And organic textures are so easy to manipulate. Let's see, what am I missing? So I want to extend that dark one a little more.